Welcome to the Narrate podcast, where we aim to tell God's story with our lives. We'll be continuing to post the Sunday message each week, but we want to dive a little deeper and offer some content to supplement your life with God, and that's where our Beyond Sunday series comes in. Join Adam and Narrate staff as they provide thoughtful discussions, ideas, and interviews that go beyond the message you'll hear on Sunday.
So last year was your first Ales. What were your impressions?
It was impressive, I think, was the word that I would use to describe it. Like the level of organization, and I mean, like I had gotten some side comments like from Lexi, like be ready, like it's gonna be, it's a lot, and so we showed up at 7:30 or 8 or whenever we showed up, and it was like everybody knew what to do, like boom boom boom, all the setup, like the tent guys were pounding in the stakes, and that was impressive.
Nobody has a worse job in town than the tent guys. Oh my
gosh, but it, like, just watching them was impressive. I mean, like, everybody had a job. Like, the level of organization that Hannah brings to it is just, like, mind-blowing. So it was a cool, fun event to attend. We got to attend VIP, and it was impressive to be a part of the setup and the teardown as well. That was my takeaway.
And you're not doing music this year because it's David Casey.
Yep, David and band.
Well, that's right. Is there like 5 of them?
Yes, no like full drummer though. So I think it'll still give that like intimate vibe.
Sweet.
So it'll be cool. I'm excited.
What do you say when people ask you about Ales?
Like my elevator speech?
Yeah, or like you're hanging out with other pastors and they're like, "What is this Ales for Trails thing?"
Yeah, that's a good, yeah.
Yeah, I say it's a beer festival that raises money for trails. Do you want more information?
Wow.
Do they usually say, yes, please, I'd like
They're like, wait, what? You work for a church? How does that work?
You spent a lot of time with the city on it this year. Like, what is the city's impression of Ales for Trails?
That's a loaded question.
Is it?
Yeah. Depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
But I think overall, that relationship is pretty good. And what impresses me is the reputation that Ales has and our team has of just being positive and treating the space well and treating vendors well. I think that I'm proud to be a part of an event that has a fairly good reputation amongst the city and the people we interact with.
And even like when I hear you come back and like report like all these different meetings you go to, I think they've got to be, I mean, I'm totally putting words in their mouth, but they've got to be impressed with like how you try to follow all the rules. Like you're like, just tell me what to do and here's my binder and I've got it and here we go.
I had one meeting and the guy from the city was like, we get it. You want to do what's right. He was really kind, but he was like, I know. Do you want to tell me that one more time? It was great. It was a fun interaction, but yeah, I think too, yeah, we want to be cooperative. We want to be good partners is something that I think is really important. That is also, I don't know if they get that a lot.
That's what I was going to say. Like that
can't
be, that has to be the exception, not the rule, I would guess.
I don't know
that.
But at my I went to a crowd management training, which was really good. And the fire marshal was like, oh, in this Ales for Trails event, like we've had these meetings and they're working hard, and Angie was like, wow, you're a teacher's pet over here, like with all the questions and the great example. It's like, well, it's not just me, it's like it's all the whole team.
I think hearing all that, it makes me grateful for Brian Smith, which a lot of people won't even know him, but one of the founders of the Blackfoot, and he was such a respectable rule follower. He did not like to do things. He hated like off-color marketing. He hated sarcastic marketing. He just liked to do things well and treat people well. And there's just a lot of the culture, I think, he really imparted to us around like just treat people well. And it's weird because he didn't have an association with Narrate, but
yeah,
there's not a better customer service experience in town than the Blackfoot.
Right.
So I love that.
I think that's something fun because a lot of times you run into, I don't know, different organizations or entities that have such a scarcity mindset.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough, or we couldn't possibly do that, or the first response is no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really fun to not only work with different departments or entities that have this abundance mindset of like, yes, we can, how can we help you? But it's fun to be that entity. Like, we can't always say yes, but we'll work with you or we'll do our best. And that's really fun too.
Yeah.
That's fair. So at the risk of being repetitive, since I'm here and I don't have the history of Ales, do you guys want to get into where this idea came from? How did it happen?
Sure. Where did it come from?
Yeah.
Steal like an artist. I mean, the spiritual gift of plagiarism that we have in abundance we use. So there was an Ales for Trails in Billings that I had attended when I lived there. And then when we got to Helena, I mean, that everything that we believed and still believe was this like show up and figure out how you can serve and how you can add value. And I just got to sit with a group of church planners, and that was the question of like, how did you get to Ales for Trails? And I was like, well, we were, it wasn't just a trope for us that the church should exist in such a way that should they cease to exist, the most ardent critic would be bummed. And so here we are in Helena. I didn't even use trails when I moved to Helena, and quickly learned like we have this robust trail system. Myself, and it was actually Lindsay Kravarushka shared the original idea and went to the city with it, and the city pointed us to a gal named Laura Bradshaw, who at the time was the county grant person, who was working on raising the grants to get the matching funds for what is now Centennial Trail. And she had enough relational capital with Brian from the Blackfoot to pull him in. And in hindsight, Brian got to create the brew fest that he would want to attend as a brewer and that he would want to send his employees to as a business owner. And as we've talked a lot about, like Brian was just a willing who, like he wasn't antagonistic towards the church, but he also, I don't know what his beliefs are. He wasn't like, it wasn't because he attended Narrate or whatever. He just really believed in the cause, and there was just, we learned a lot from him as to how to do customer service. So the first year was at the fairgrounds, and it was like 300 people, and the second year was at the fairgrounds, and it was like 400 people. And that's the other thing, is to me it's just such a testament that things in Helena, they don't blow up, they just scale. And he had a vision for moving it downtown way before I did, way before any of us did, not just me. Yeah, so you would have picked up into it, Hannah. What was your first one?
My first one was 2017.
So in the park. Must have been one of the first park ones. We must have been 2 or 3 in or something.
Yeah, because it wasn't the first time it was down there.
And at that time, brewfests were hot and sexy, right? Because you couldn't go to the grocery store and buy a beer from 30 different Montana breweries. So
Right.
I think in some ways it was easier then, and this is where I think your work, Hannah, has come in really big, is like there's really no business incentive for a brewery to be a part of a brew fest. It's a very rare person now that I think is just clamoring to go to a brew fest, whereas I remember like we would organize vacations around going to Portland and hitting a brew fest. So that customer service hospitality piece is more important than ever.
I think it is. I mean, we have one of the pour trainings tomorrow, which the Blackfoot always helps a ton. Tim is a part of that, a huge part of that. And part of the emphasis of the training, so we train everyone who pours beer, and part of it is like, here's the logistics, here's how you do it, here's the event details. But part of the training is like customer service, relation work, like say yes, how can we help, like be kind. Not that they necessarily need that, but it's such a good reminder. Like we pride ourselves on being very customer service oriented, and so it's part of it. So 60 people are going to have this training that's like, here's not only how to pour beer correctly, but also like, here's a reminder that customer service is so important.
And it was like that was part of my first impression was like everybody was so happy. Everyone that was pouring beer was so kind. So
Yes.
like, come try this one.
Yeah.
Like, let me tell you about it. It was just so like,
there's a lot of ownership then.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm a part of this really great thing.
yeah.
And we treat volunteers well, or I hope we do. That's my goal, that we treat the volunteers really well and they feel like they're a part of something.
And see, even that, like Brian's the one that had the imagination for, you don't want breweries pouring the beer because what you're trying to do is do a fundraiser. And he was the one that had this experience of, if it's the brewery behind there, then they give it all away, and
Right.
like all of these values that he brought. I mean, even that's, and we've taken some heat in some like subtle marketing for the fact that we still charge $1 for extra pours.
Right.
That's a Brian thing, because Brian shared the vision for, we don't want a drunk fest. And so he was the one that was like, if you just charge $1, then people don't overdrink. But if it's like the buffet, if it's all you can drink, people naturally overconsume. So
Right.
he's the one at the time, best of shows, and they still are a thing, were all the rage. And he was like, you don't want to do a competition because that's what brings out the worst in people's behaviors. And so again, just points to so many of the areas that, so he's the one that started doing the training thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And and again, like they don't in any way benefit or profit from opening up their tap room and pouring free beer and letting people learn how to serve.
No. Mm-mm.
And I also love that, like, while our volunteers get a free ticket, like you don't, like Narrate buys hours. Most of our spouses put in a 14-hour day. They buy they buy their own.
Yeah.
That was also a Brian thing of, he's the one that kind of awakened me to, the trouble here is if you start giving away free, there's just no end of free and you won't raise any money. So I think the way we've been able to manage that while also being really generous is that weird line between, it is a value event, $50 and all that food, like,
Yeah.
but also, so we hope it's win-win-win, where you don't leave feeling like people were twisting your arm for money all night. The breweries we just pay the invoice.
Yep.
And then we don't take cuts from the vendors, but we do give our volunteers a free ticket and a t-shirt. So, and that's because of sponsorships like that of Stockman.
Yeah, exactly.
How much have we raised historically? Do you know, like, off the top of your head?
223,000.
And this is
I
our
believe.
14th?
There's some odd dollars and cents in there
Yeah.
that I don't have memorized.
223,000.
Yeah.
And I don't know that everyone understands, like, Narrate doesn't take an overhead. Like, this is part of the vision that the church has for this. That they pay our salaries, like Narrate does, but like it's just basic math. We take sponsorships and ticket sales and I guess apparel sales minus expenses, and the rest goes to trails.
Exactly.
You've been on the new trail to Scratch Gravels.
I have. It's
How
a
do you feel about it?
blast. I love it. It's such a good addition because it connects that like head lane side to the echo lane side, and I like it because it's like right at my riding ability. Like there's still some challenge, but I can do it. So
Also a great hiking trail and running trail.
yeah, I have
and
not
even horse
hiked or run
trail.
on it, but
Have you ridden your horse on it yet? Either of you?
Can't say that I have.
I thought they did a
Nope.
good job of.
but it's great.
It's so refreshing to be past the like trail wars.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
awesome. Just this like mutuality of. Last time we worked on it, a lady on a horse went walking by. I loved that.
That's awesome.
223,000.
That's pretty impressive.
It's
Yeah.
fun. We have almost 30,000 in sponsorships this year, which I don't even know if we'll raise 30, but that's the other thing. I mean, you see that like the cost of doing this just keeps escalating.
The cost does for sure keep going up, but somehow we always raise money
Yeah,
and it works. Can I talk about my favorite part?
sure.
I think my favorite part of Ales is the working with the volunteers because it's a lot of the same people that come back every year.
Really?
And it's a lot of Narrate people, but it's a lot of just Helena people or like Montana people. Like I know several people that don't live in Helena, but they follow the event. And then every time we post, every year I post like, oh, we have volunteer opportunities. These people email me and they're like, great, can I do this again? And I love it because people just get so excited about the event. And so that's just my favorite part, like watching all these different people just come together and work together, and it's so much fun.
To come in from out of town.
Yeah,
to help.
it's so fun. Like
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
How many volunteers?
Like 150.
And how many of those do you think are Narrate attendees?
Half, maybe. Yeah.
That's really awesome.
That's really awesome.
There's both a plus and there's a good side and a bad side to the fact that we're known as the beer church. But I think I'll take the good side over the bad side. It is a paradoxical concept, but
I think it goes, I don't know, it goes really well with the whole scattering thing that Narrate does. So when I was going to ask this when you were talking about the history, when you had this idea, or Brian had this idea, and you started thinking about it, were you guys already scattering? Was that like a piece of?
Yeah, there was definitely a scattering value. And honestly, when we started, there was this like really strong desire to not create events. Like we just wanted to come alongside existing events.
Like partner.
Yeah, and provide like the vision was we'll provide the volunteers for your event. And what happened, I mean, there was a few variables. One were ideas where we got to create, but then the other one was there were a couple experiences where the way our volunteers were treated and the way the organization was like, oh, we don't want to do that to people. So yeah, I forget, what was the original question?
Just if you had already been scattering and like how, because Ales is like it's a really big event, you know, now it's like one of the biggest events that we do. So like just that transition from like scattering, having this value in the community to like that becoming one of the biggest things that we do.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's a really fun reflection of our desire to have, like, even within our recipe, is that have unlikely partnerships.
Yeah.
Like we love all of the, like, what's the word for that? The parachurch things in town that do really good work alongside the church, but we've always felt like, well, we're not needed there. Let's build these partnerships with other places. I still remember the council meeting where I brought the idea of just kind of sitting with what would this look like, and proud of them for their level of courage and trust. And and I remember we would just often say, well, the point at which this is just easy, then that's probably a bad sign. But sitting in that space, a lot of friendship from it.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So this year, you want to talk about what the money's going to this year?
Yeah, this year, all the money raised will go towards the Scratch Gravel Trail project. And it is a trail up to the top of the Scratch Gravel Peak, is that correct?
Wow.
That's walkable, hikeable, runnable, rideable.
Great.
Because anybody who knows it now knows that there's sections where you're not quite on your hands and knees. I took you up it. What do you remember on your bike?
I remember one point getting off and pushing. I thought, this is a lot of pushing my bike.
I remember not only that, but then me walking back on the hill and pushing your bike the rest of the way up.
Yes, because it was hard to walk up that hill.
So yeah, I don't, if we can pull that off, like, that is going to forever change the way the Scratch Gravels works, whether you're doing it on foot or on wheels or on hoofs, because there's such fun potential to getting to the top of that peak, but it's just so miserable now.
How many miles are we talking? Like what
2 miles.
2 miles.
So people familiar with Scratch Gravels or know there's like this saddle point on the eastern part, and if you do the untenable climb, it's from that point up to what I think is just called the Scratch Gravel Peak on that far eastern part. So it's 2 miles from that point. And the other exciting thing is Fat Tracks, which I think it's being flagged like as we speak, maybe, or
awesome.
There's real potential that if we can raise really we have to raise 50 grand, that this would go in this summer, if not fall. But what they're excited about is even what exists there now exists on the southeast part of that peak. And they would say there's really fun stuff on the northwest part. And so they have this picture for almost kind of spiraling it to get to the top and creating lot more interesting type of stuff. So
Very cool.
there was a time where we could raise 35 to 40 grand for ales, and just had to acknowledge a few years ago, like those days are gone. Costs are higher. Again, like there was a time where people were willing to spend $80 on a VIP ticket. They're not anymore. So that team, was that 2 years ago when we kind of put our heads together and was like, how much do we have to raise to make this worth your while?
We did.
And that number was 20. Is that the way you remember it?
I do.
Yeah. So last year we raised a little over, was it like closer to 25 last year?
It was like 22.
Okay. So if we can raise 25 this year, and then we actually have some art ideas to maybe raise the other 25. MBG is doing some work to raise some money. So if we could raise 50, Fat Tracks thinks they could get it done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which would be, 3.5 new miles of trail and scratch gravel in a 12-month period.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And, I mean, no one really wants to talk about it, but I'm like, I don't know why we're afraid to talk about it. Like, in the current cultural, political moment, whether you're right, wrong, or indifferent, there's just less money available. So I remember Tim Lynch, who manages the base camp, has for years, phenomenal leader and manager, culture builder. He said to me probably 10 years ago, like, Adam, the future of all things recreation is going to be user groups, like raising the money and doing it themselves. And I don't know that I have an opinion on whether or not the government helps, but I do think part of what I love about this is ales is not viable because it's a brew fest. It's not viable because of the only way it'll be viable is if the community so believes in the project that they participate to that end. And I love the tangibility of that.
Yeah, I do too. I think, if you spend time out there or on trails at all, like, we want these. We want nice trails. We want new trails. Like, it's worth it to support our recreation.
Yeah, it used to be, unless you live out there like you do.
Oh, yeah.
The scratch gravels were only a place that you went if it was otherwise winter in the South Hills.
Sure.
But I've even caught myself, now that the South Hills are open, going like, no, I'm going out to the scratch gravels tonight because there's suddenly really interesting stuff, and that's going to grow exponentially if we get this new trail in. I like Chase's argument too.
Well,
He does it with an
is
edge. Well, he'll speak especially to bikers and to runners and hikers. Like, we all pay our taxes, so we all contribute on that level.
right.
At least I pay my taxes. I don't know if you guys do.
I pay my taxes.
Yes.
That's on the record.
But Chase will say, people ride these $5,000 to $10,000 bikes, and he's like, if you're not giving like 10% of the value of your bike to trails every year, then what are you doing? Because if you're a skier, you buy lift tickets.
Sure.
Right? If you're a dancer, you pay for the facility where you. I mean, there's. But and the unique thing about trail users is, again, we pay our taxes, but if we're not careful, there's an entitlement that sets in.
Yeah.
Right, there's
So-
nothing like holding you accountable, like in the same way as paying for a facility or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that thought when we worked on the scratch gravel trail, because we've done it twice now. And like, if I'm being honest, it hit me like, I don't know how many hours I've spent on the South Hills, and I've never done a trail day. And when you work on it, you realize like somebody worked their butt off to make this doable.
It's way more work. So I've just done a few, and it's way more work than you think.
What's
This
some
is
of the
a
like
lot
help
of the
people
detail
understand?
and the like, just the. I remember doing one up on Mount Helena. I think we did a scattering, and it just like the hand placing these giant rocks
We had the
and
88 trail.
raking. And then I did the one in the scratch gravels, and just the raking and the getting the roots out of the way and trimming these trees and just all the detail. Like, there's a lot of precision that goes into. It's not just we'll just plow something out. Like, there's a lot of intentionality.
But that's kind of how it starts, right? That's how a trail is started, is somebody comes in with like a piece of machinery. No, they flag it first.
Right,
Flag
yep.
it. Someone
Before
comes
that,
in.
you walk through
Oh,
with
yeah, tell us about
everyone.
that.
Yeah.
That was a real treat. I didn't realize those were full day things. Like, I was ready for an hour tops.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked through with the BLM, and it was great, but it was really interesting to hear the different considerations, like the wildlife or the, history or whatever.
Right.
But it was a very long conversation
That's
and
like
a
to
long
get it
process
approved.
to get it approved, and it's where exactly it's going to go. So it's super interesting.
So they do that.
I just
then
should have
they
brought water.
flag it. Right? Yeah, you need to be prepared for those kind of day-long
and then they flag it, and then haters pull the flags.
So they have to reflag it.
That's real?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. All the flags got pulled on that trail.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So
Haters gonna hate.
back to the scarcity mentality.
Right.
There's like plenty of land for people.
Right. And it's park. It's not wilderness.
Yeah.
Or in this case, it's BLM. That might be fun. Maybe we can end on this of like the history of what the money has gone to. So it went to Centennial Trail via Prickly Pear
It
for the
did.
first 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then what was next? Was that the directional?
There was a directional trail off of Ascension.
Yep. What is that? Cruise Control and Big Dorothy's. I think those are the proper
I don't
names.
know that.
There's underground names, but those are the Cruise Control and Big Dorothy's. Big Dorothy's was the first black trail in the trail system.
That's why I've never heard of it.
Yeah, there's some wild stuff. But the design there was to get some of the directional downhill people their space to keep them off the rest of it.
Sure.
I think that was like a $30,000 deal. And then
These are probably out of order, but there was the Trail Rider and the
Oh, that's right.
Park City Trailhead,
Oh yeah, the paving up there, the bathroom.
the old shooting range trailhead,
Is that like the pad or
the
something?
pad
we paid for?
and the outhouse and the
Mhm.
and then there was the ADA trail in Mount Helena.
That's right.
Or no,
the-
was that I can't
No, that-
remember.
yeah.
Was that
I think.
I
yeah.
have there's a sheet with all of this information on it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the work was
Should
with
post that.
PPLT, and then we did a ton of work with Brad Langsetter from the city, who it would take us hours to have enough time to talk about how awesome he is.
Oh yeah.
And because I think the last thing was he used Ales money to build that parking lot off of
Lime kiln.
Like
Mhm.
that was Ales money plus city labor, and he saved the city a ton of money on that
He
one.
did.
And then it's now shifted to the scratch gravels, which I don't
Yeah.
picture being permanent, but
Mm-hmm.
so it's moved around to a lot of things, but it is fun to be back. In the early days, the vision was like shovel ready projects that just make it tangible. And then we moved into this season where shovel ready wasn't safe because shovel ready drew attention to that, which would then be resisted. So we just had to like raise money and then later give it, which was really not as compelling. And now we're back in this season of the tangibility of,
Mm-hmm.
like, for example, those scratch gravel maps, which are awesome. They're $100 printed on wood, and was it like $63 of those are pure profit for the trails.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
just love the tangibility of that.
I like the tangibility that we raised money for the trail last year. You could walk out there today and you could get on the trail that we raised money for
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Anything else stand out that you think we should talk about?
I don't think
This is way more fun than monologuing.
No, I
So-
don't think so. If you want to buy tickets, go to 406 Tix or one of the local breweries.
VIP sold out.
VIP is sold out.
So main event's 5 to 9,
Correct.
and tickets at the breweries are how much?
$20.
And online they're,
$25.
and then at the day of.
Day of, they're $35. So get them
Sweet.
now, or get them at the gate, and more money goes to trails.
That's true.
There you go.
Yeah. Great food. Who are the food trucks this year?
Yeah, so Habana 406 is catering the VIP, so that's going to be incredible.
Otherworldly.
And then Rockstar and Cheddar's are doing the main event.
Sweet.
So it should be really good.
And we don't take a cut from that at all. It's
We do
just,
not,
although
no.
we do ask them to give brewers a food voucher.
We do, but yeah.
What are the volunteer needs at this juncture?
Yeah, right now it would just be the gates and the ticket tables.
Sweet.
So still have spots there for people.
Awesome.
It's gonna be fun.
Thank you guys for your work on that.
Let's pray for 70 degrees inside.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the last,
Yes.
The last thing.
Yeah.
Bring your weather appropriate clothes.
Yeah.
We do have umbrellas though.
Oh yeah, thanks to
Bo.
Bo and Bigfoot Property Management. Is that who's on them? Because he's got like
Yeah.
7 companies, so I'm never sure which one's on there.
It's the Bigfoot one.
Okay, sweet.
Yes, we'll have those.
It's like it'll never rain again because we have
Right.
umbrellas on. Sweet. All right. Thanks.
If you'd like to learn more about Narrate Church, find us online at narratechurch.org.
You can also look us up on Facebook or Instagram. Thanks for listening.